So here's a nice little fact for you. If you put some sort of random combination of words together and then add the word meaning when you type it into Google, Google's new AI search will sort of tell you what that phrase means. Now that's fine if you gave it a normal sort of parable or aphorism, you can't cross the same bridge twice or lightning doesn't strike twice or something like that. But people have discovered if you put something a little bit weird, like you can't lick a badger twice or never throw a poodle at a pig, and then put meaning, then Google will dive in there and give you the meaning of this phrase. So I went out there and I thought, all right, what can I put in there? I put faster than a banana's ding dong, and Google gave me a great meaning out there. So thanks AI. If you ever wanted to know what faster than a banana's ding dong might mean, just put the word meaning and then go into Google. Welcome to a little bit of science, the show that explores a little bit of science. I'm Will Grant. I'm an Associate Professor of Science Communication at the Australian National University.
I'm Rod Lamberts. I'm a 30-year SciComm veteran with the mind of a teenage boy.
And today, Rod, you told me you're going to tell me about some paradoxes you got obsessed with.
I think you find the plural is paradises.
Yeah, and then I've got some, careers in science for you. I thought I did a bit of research on that. I've also got a little tiny science fact for you if you want to know just the smallest, tiniest fact that I learned this week.
They're the only facts I ever want. Big ones hurt my brain. You know that. Here's the thing. I was meandering through the intertube, as one does, looking for fun things to talk about. And I saw this story about people who became obsessed with Rocco's Basilisk. And I know you're a big fan.
I don't know if I'm a big fan. I'm a person who worries about Rocco's Basilisk, but I'm also someone who, with a devil may care attitude, I'm happy to invoke Rocco's Basilisk whenever, with the belief that maybe it won't torture me forever.
Yeah, the gist of it is basically there are many different versions. Bottom line is there's some future malevolent AI out there that wants to punish people for not doing its bidding, but it also somehow can reach back in time for people who tried to block it before it began or as it was developing. And it would punish you today for things you may or may not be going to do in the future and have been naughty.
Does this include my thought crimes?
Yep. Depends how far in the future it comes back from to get you. But I started looking into this because this article said, it basically talked about a whole sort of weird culty, murdery, is reality even real group of people, which I thought that's kind of fascinating. And then it got too big and strange and scary and kind of gross. So I thought, I don't want to do that yet. Maybe I'll come back to that in another episode. But by doing that, it sent me down a rabbit hole of all these other thought crimes and many that kind of dabble in these paradoxes. So there are three that caught my eye. So I'm going to let you hear about them and roll around in them. One's called the experience machine. One's called the Barber's paradox. And, of course, the best one, because it's me, Buridan's ass. And I'm not making any of these up, or if I am, see if you can tell.
I know this doesn't really matter, but how do you spell Buridan? Is it like...
Buridan, and ass is A-S-S. They actually mean donkey.
Oh, they mean donkey, not his butt. Oh, man.
No one was as disappointed as I was when I saw it. I was thinking, I'll go philosophy. But no, it's a donkey. And I'll get to that last. First up, the experience machine.
Do you want me to guess what the experience machine is?
If you want to, sure.
I feel like it's a little bit like Dune. Where he's got to put his hand in the box and it's like, what's in there? And she says, pain. And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, she does it in the voice. But I feel like the experience machine is like you go to a fun fair or something like that and you got to put a body part in the box. And it's like, what do you get? It's like, well, you get an experience.
Look, it could be any machine though, really. Any machine could be an experience.
I feel like it's like a truck stop toilet. You know, where there's a hole in the wall and you put an experience machine and you put something through the hole.
And you have an experience. Look, this actually could be all of those and everything else you can imagine. Because basically there's a philosopher, guy called Robert Nozick Nozick. So he wrote a book, 74, Anarchy, State and Utopia. And he did a thought experiment that wanted to challenge hedonism, particularly extreme hedonism. Now, I'm a big fan of hedonism. You probably didn't know that about me. No one who knows me would have guessed that. But it is only my surrounding loved ones, etc., who keep me from turning into an insane and inveterate hedonist, because
Hedonist
I like
being like
pleasure.
the pleasure seeker.
Love pleasure. I just love pleasure. And the pure hedonism is, pleasure is the only thing that matters. So the deep philosophers, of which I am not whom.
Are there deep philosophers who subscribe to hedonism? I mean, I don't think they covered that in The Good Place, and said, okay, now we should just go pure pleasure.
That's the epilogue movie after The Good Place. They're going to go, by the way. No, you've always got that. What is that moral philosophy guy? Moral philosophy does come up in this. So the setup here, here's the setup for the experience machine. So you've got to imagine a super advanced machine that can simulate any experience.
Okay.
Any experience. You get to pre-program basically that experience or your entire life. So it could be anything. It could be fame. It could be success. It could be space travel. It could be being able to play table tennis like, Jan Ove Waldner, for example.
Sure.
He's very good at it.
That guy. This is so luckily in the Star Trek, the
Hollow
holodeck.
Suite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, if you go full bore, the comparisons to the Matrix come up a lot. Because apparently in this machine, you won't necessarily know it's a simulation. Once you're plugged in, it'll feel real. So you'll be floating in a tank, electrodes in your brain. You'll be like in a living dream. Your body will be sustained somehow, et cetera, et cetera. So imagine this exists, and this is well pre-Matrix. The question is, and these philosophers put it to you, is would you plug into this machine? And the implication be, and stay there. But would you plug in first up? Would you?
I feel like yes. Like I feel like there's a bunch of things where you say, well, I'd like to do that, but it costs too much money. Or I would like to eat the world's biggest hamburger. I don't know.
Your imagination is free to roam and you go, big hamburger.
No, not really. But, I just didn't want to say the things I was really thinking.
Oh, you mean a big hot dog?
Yeah, big.
But look, the implication is very much like if you plug in, you stay there. So would you be prepared to fully commit?
I was just going for a Friday night experience, but
well, look, I think it's still the challenge still comes in, but it's more like if you really were you prepared to commit, because you basically say the challenge in this position is it's challenging the position rather that the best life is one with the most happiness or pleasure. It's sometimes called pure pleasure theory.
No, see, I don't want to.
No.
I don't want to go into the pure pleasure machine because I'm a reality junkie, man, and I got to earn the pleasures. Like I feel like, you can cheat on a Friday night and say, all right, I'm maxing some pleasures out by going into the experience machine, but you have too much. They don't count anymore. They're boring.
Well, this is what he said. He reckons most people would say no because it proves pleasure isn't the only thing we value, but also that, like you said, you kind of got to earn it.
Yeah,
that's his theory. That's what he reckons. And there are arguments though for people who would. One argument for yes is you can literally curate what seems like an eternally fulfilling or at least pleasurable life. No suffering, heartbreak, boredom, no awkward job interviews, no letdowns, perfect, consistent, awesome things you want. That in itself, if you don't think too deeply about it, sounds great. But I mean, your objections come into play quickly. You don't need to earn your skills. You can say, I want to play guitar as if, Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen had a child and I want to play like that person. You could organise all the photos on your iPhone into meaningful categories in like 3 seconds. Because, we're all going to do that. We're all going to organise our photos one day so that we can actually search them and make sense of them.
That's your pleasure-seeking experience.
Oh, I might need to push pause. Another argument is, your brain already lives in a simulation, man, because we're basically a lump of juice and it only gets what we interpret via our senses and nerves and da-da-da-da-da. So this is just a more efficient version of that.
But I mean, this is still free riding though. Like we're going into this tank, and the tank has to, this magic experience machine has to cost energy on the system outside. So you can't stay in there without doing some work to earn that.
Or not everyone could be in there. Someone would have to be outside cleaning out your poo-poo wee-wees from the
or whatever, or
fluids.
stoking the nuclear power plant or something like that.
Exactly. Shoveling uranium with the other blue-collar workers. His biggest argument for people who don't want to do it is, or wouldn't plug in, is because people actually want to do things, not just feel or seem like they've done them. Like there's value in the struggle and the effort, etc.
Totally. Did you click on to going into the experience machine for forever?
Would I click on it? No, I don't think I would. I wish I could. But I too would have this authenticity issue. They called this out in the Matrix when a previous version, Mr. Anderson, we made it where everything was perfect, but in the end everyone went crazy and started eating each other because it was too perfect. So the Matrix, I was going to say beat us, but no, it didn't. It came years after this
Or, or,
proposition.
or I think the flaw in that is I don't think even an all-powerful simulation robot making a matrix could make things perfect in the
Yeah,
sense
yeah.
that yes, it could say, okay, everyone has all the food they want, all the leisure they want, they have the perfect body or something like that. But there would always be some goods that can't be shared. Who has the best view? Who has the most status at the party? Those kinds of things. And there will always be competition over them. I don't think a machine can solve that
Yeah.
problem. When you live in a society, there's some stuff you can't share perfectly. So
That's true, right? You walk into a party and everyone's the hottest and the coolest and the most interesting, etc.
it
That makes no
doesn't
sense.
work. It
How
doesn't
does your
work.
brain do that? Good point. That's one.
All right. The Barber's paradox.
The Barber's paradox. So this was a Bertrand Russell call.
Should I play guessing what this paradox might be?
Yeah, please do. Please do. I'll give you the time frame. Early 20th century, done by a logician. And basically, he was a bit of a philosophical troublemaker. I think Bertrand Russell's entertaining. So there's your timing.
So something
Barber's
to do with cutting
paradox.
hair. The barber
Whoa.
has a choice about cutting hair. If a person comes in and asks for a bad haircut, should the barber give it to them?
The answer is yes. Haven't you looked around lately?
But the barber is going
these weird mullet hybrids.
Everyone's going to walk out. No, like a literally bad haircut, not just a fashionably bad haircut, but literally bad. And
Shit the bed. Horrible, ridiculous, embarrassing.
yeah.
probably gonna get beaten
And the
up.
person walks out, and everyone just goes, "Whoa, that's a terrible haircut. Where'd you get that?" And he's like, "I got it at this barber." And so then the barber is tainted by giving a deliberately bad haircut, even though the customer asked for it. Is that the paradox?
No, but I like it.
Okay.
I like
All
your
right.
thinking. So imagine there's a town with a single barber.
Yep.
This barber shaves all and only those men who will not or do not shave themselves. That's who the barber shaves.
So you can't do a special Friday shave with the barber, but Monday, Tuesday you like shaving yourself.
No. You either don't or can't shave yourself, and he has to shave all of those men. But the question for this in this scenario is, does the barber shave himself?
All and only those men who do not shave themselves. So he's shaving himself, so he can't shave himself. So
But if he can't or doesn't shave himself, he has to shave himself.
have we said he's a him? Because
Yeah, that's one of the people try to get out with. Maybe
There's
the
a
barber's a
barber.
lady. Yeah. No, it's a dude. All philosophy sexism, man. Come on.
I know that. Well, obviously that's impossible. So this town falls into the void.
Pretty much right.
But what does this paradox tell us?
Well, that's what he gets at. Just in case people aren't, keeping up with our razor sharp intellect bouncing this around. Bottom line, if the barber shaves himself, then he's shaving someone who shaves himself, which he can't do because he only shaves people who don't. So he can't shave himself. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he's a man who doesn't shave himself. Therefore, he's obliged to shave himself because he's a person who doesn't shave himself. So you get stuck in this infinite loop. So the question, I think, I'm paraphrasing what you just asked, who gives a shit? What's this for?
I feel like that should be a button on the end of a lot of philosophical paradoxes. Some it's like, okay, that gets me, and that's straight into my soul. Others like, really, what are we doing here?
Okay, chat. Well, look, I'll just briefly, because this is not the mathematics podcast yet, obviously. Basically, he came up with this to talk about set theory. I'm not going to have to get into set theory. Bottom line was that talking about sets of numbers, etc., or idea things that contain themselves or do not contain themselves can create paradoxes.
Yeah. Okay.
So the way they define it, as the logicians do it, and the numbers people, if you say let R be a set of all sets that do not contain themselves. And then the question becomes, does R contain itself? The problem is, if R contains itself, it shouldn't, and if R doesn't contain itself, it should.
Yeah. Okay.
So you get this self-referential loop. Like in language, the utterance, this sentence is false. It can't be and it must be. This is one of the good things for that is these paradoxes that come up when you apply this get into things, including when AI systems get caught in loops. You can throw AI systems into these decent loops by giving them these sorts of questions. So there is some utility or at least fun in playing with it.
I suspect that could be a great way to break an AI system. I mean, we spoke previously about the reciprocal dance problem, when two robots are heading towards each other and they just get stuck in a loop. But I think there's probably a bunch of flaws in AI reasoning that even if it's working on a probabilistic mode, not a logical mode, that there are things that it could get stuck with. That's great.
Yeah.
I'd love
Yeah.
to kill an AI system with a paradox.
Unless it kills us first.
Yeah, well,
Okay. Buridan's arse, or donkey, which is not unrelated to the previous one. It's better and dumber. So it's a thought experiment from the 14th century by a philosopher called Jean Buridan.
that's when asses were more useful.
And they were prolific. Plentiful ass in the 14th century. And donkeys too. So this is put as, it's a thought experiment that looks about being stuck between two entirely equal good options. And if you approach it entirely and utterly rationally, what happens? So the setup is this. Imagine a donkey is placed at the perfectly equidistant, perfectly the same distance between two entirely identical piles of hay. They're both the same size, same smell. Everything about them is the same. They look the same. They appear to be the same size, density, everything. And the donkey is exactly in between the two of them. So the donkey, assuming the donkey is perfectly rational, for some reason they chose donkeys for rationality, it tries to decide which option is better, which one should it choose. But because they're exactly the same size, the same smell, the same distance, and it's completely rational, it can't decide, so it stands there till it starves. Because it's literally paralyzed by indecision because there's no rational way to make a decision between the two.
But there are people that experience this kind of thing in life, choosing between two different options, and both are equally good. Both actually might be legitimately good and are not able to choose, and so they get stuck and do nothing.
Yeah, but this is even, take that to the extreme. It's not like, that'd be really good because I get more money, or that'd be really good because I get more prestige.
Yeah.
These are they're saying literally exactly the same.
I have, in some sense, used this in my life. There are definitely times when you get, two slices of cake or some thing like that, and you're choosing which one will I have. If you can't tell the difference, then it doesn't matter. Like it really doesn't matter. I can totally accept in this Buridan's ass version, you get paralyzed by it. But I think at some point, letting go of that and just saying, it doesn't matter. If I can't tell the difference, then grab one.
But what allows you to? The question is, this is the assumption that if you're purely rational, and this could again come up if you're dealing with AI, although we're starting to see maybe they're not purely rational as much as we can determine that. How do you choose? I mean, my solution is easy. Eat both bits of cake, or eat neither, but then, of course, you starve. But that's the question. It's like, basically the argument is, if you strip away instinct, randomness, some kind of whimsy or whim, the rational thought will paralyze itself, or there's a potential for rational thought to leave you completely trapped, which I think is interesting. Just the idea of that is interesting.
There is something, I'm not going to get this right because it's drawing on some quantum mechanics, I think. There are sort of ideas about a simulation of the universe. If we were to run a simulation of the universe and get it as identically as, get it perfectly identically, then do all of the things that have happened in this universe happen in that simulation of the universe. And one argument against that is that there is, at what level are we talking about identicalness? The planets are in the same spot, or the molecules are in the same spot, or the atoms are in the same spot, or, you go down to like the Planck's, the quantum fluctuations. And I think the end result of that is an argument from quantum physics, and I'm sorry, quantum physicists here, that there just isn't a way of having the same spot. The universe relies on some level of random that will push things, they might be almost identical, but there is that slight difference, and it pushes you to that sort of thing, or it pushes you in that sort of direction. And that happens from the very quantum level of the universe, that we can't have equality on either side.
One of the early objections to this came from theologians, and remember we're talking 14th century, where they said, look, but wouldn't God just nudge the donkey a bit? Like, wouldn't there be what they're really kind of saying from our point of view, a random element? Like, it could be something really tiny. And it's arguments like, would the donkey maybe see slightly better out of one eye than the other or something? Therefore, it was, given a proclivity. Or was there a gust of wind that blew from one side or the other?
Yeah.
But apparently some of them got so angry about this and got so heated that, like, you had monks having fist fights over Which I fucking love that. Are they angry about not being able to drink or never having sex? It's no, you were wrong about Buridan's ass, you son of a bitch.
I completely believe this, but I think it's a way, in a sense, for these monks to get to the idea of could you have perfect equality like that? Could you capture that kind of thing? And I think it's a disbelief that there is anything that, is it the donkey's eye is slightly better on one side or whatever that is,
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
world doesn't have, these perfect essences that exist in the world. And you can say, yes, they are mathematically equivalent.
yeah. And look, you can see this coming into play when you're talking about the classics of AI cars or self-driven cars, discerning between two terrible options. Do I hit the child or do I hit the other child?
And that's actually a really interesting question. Like, how does it weigh up the consequences of all of those things? And at what
Yeah.
level does it chap out and just go, too
Meh.
hard, I'll just hit the one that's closer? Or,
Or it pulls what is it? A Tesla Cybertruck and just bursts into flames, kills
yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
'Cause
And I
that's why
think,
they're doing it, right? They're doing it because they're so moral.
but we have had centuries of, let's say, horny drunk monks having these fights,
Yes.
or stoned teenagers talking about the essence of the universe, and computers just haven't. So they're going to have to spend a fair bit
Speaking
of
of
time doing
stoned
this.
teenagers, those of you who are listening right now, we are talking just to you. I'm
Oh,
talking just to you, stoned teenagers.
make them paranoid, man.
If you weren't sure, yes, you.
You gave me a philosophical question. I've got a sociological question where we might think, okay, why are we not really grappling with what's going on? There's a couple of components to this story. You know this story. It's a fast
Yep.
moving story, but I think it's
Yep.
one that we should spend a little bit of time looking at. Where I'm going to start is Nature careers. So Nature, big science magazine. It's one of the voices of science. They do a career survey every year. And, for a long time, it's been, what disciplines are up, what disciplines are bad. There's more in physics, less in chemistry, whatever it is, something like
Yeah.
that. Or there's more jobs for younger people or more jobs for older people or stuff like that. And, for a long time, we in our field have, looked at these things and you see little fluctuations and you go, oh, cool, that's pointing to, more work in AI. This Nature survey this year, there has been the enormous stone thrown into the pond that is Donald Trump.
Oh, that rings a bell. Yeah, yeah.
So there's some data here that shows that US scientists between January this year and March this year have submitted 32% more applications to move internationally than in the periods before. In March alone, views of jobs overseas from America have risen 68%. So
Fuck.
there are a whole bunch of people, scientists, and let's assume this parallels to a lot of other people who have that profession, but we're here talking about science, who are just saying, all right, I'm looking for a way to get out of here.
Yep. I
Something.
suspect those numbers are going to go up.
Oh my
honestly.
God! Well, I saw there was a separate survey, which actually that was not. So the first one was looking at actual careers, applications, and things like this. This other one was just on sentiment. Something like 75% of the researchers in the United States were keen to leave. It's like 75%.
Fucking what? I mean, what's the weird thing about that is people in that Trump machine are going, victory.
Well. So this is. I mean, that's one of the questions that I want to get to. What is driving this? Of course, the first thing is that there is a whole bunch of research that has been actively cancelled. There's a couple of great websites that have been going on. So these are on Airtable. One is tracking the National Institutes of Health research grants that have been cancelled, and the other is tracking the National Science Foundation. Both of those have had 400 grants cancelled recently each. There's a whole
400.
bunch more. There's a whole bunch more. So
400.
each. Yeah. And these are active grants. So these are not vetoing grants that, were about to get funded or the researchers, community has said this is worth funding. This is stuff that has been funded. People are working. People are 3 months into these things. There was one study. I'm going to go through a bunch of these studies in a second, just so you can see a pattern. But there's a landmark study on women's health. Tens of thousands of women had been tracked over 4 decades. So this was started in the 1990s. Throughout America, there's like 4 data collection centers around the country. You get tens of thousands of women, and you grab all of that data. What's your diet like? What's your health and activity like? And then you look at the outcomes. Who's having the heart attacks? Who's getting the cancers? All of those kind of stuff. Been running
4
for
decades is fantastic.
4 decades with tens of thousands of people.
I mean, it was fantastic. Do I mean was?
Well, yeah, it was. So that one is. So there's huge things, there's tiny things, but I wanted to play a little game.
This sounds fun.
I'm just gonna read through and see if you can guess. I'll just read the titles. I'm not even going to go into the abstracts or anything, and see if you can work out the keyword that got that particular grant funded. So
liberals. Woke.
A multi-scale atlas of senescence in diverse tissue types. What word got that cancelled?
Diverse.
Targeting TB transmission hotspots to find undiagnosed TB in South Africa.
Ooh, it could be because trans is in there, or else it's a country other than America.
I think it could be either of those.
I'm loving it. I mean, we've already got to say, to be clear, neither of those words have anything to do with their political horse height. But anyway, why would you bother to dive into that?
Smoking and cancer-related health disparities among sexual and gender minority adults.
Oh my God, there's so many. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, I've got sexual and gender.
Yes.
But I assume gender's more offensive than sexual.
Well, it was diversity, I think. Skeletal health and bone marrow composition among youth.
Skeletal health, bone marrow composition among youth. Youth has got to be a trigger, sure.
Youth is. I think maybe if we clicked in, it might find diverse populations of youth. But I do like the idea that potentially the Trump administration is like no science that will make the youth healthier.
Youth. It's survival of the most insane. If they live past youth, then we'll do research.
Structural influence on methamphetamine use among black, gay, and bisexual men.
Yeah, that's hard to pick. It's obviously among.
Well, let's flip over to the National Science Foundation. So National Institutes of Health are obviously doing research focused on biomedical sort of stuff. But let's read some National Science Foundation ones.
Goody, shall we? Let's find out how good they are.
A signal detection approach to understanding susceptibility to misinformation.
Ooh, misinformation is probably a word they don't like.
They don't like that. Yeah.
No.
So there's a bunch of projects that are looking at anything that is tracking misinformation or disinformation work. And it's because they're like, no, we don't want to track that anymore. That's against us.
Yeah, that's our core business. If we didn't have misinformation, we couldn't communicate. To be fair, they also have disinformation. I mean, let's not be unkind to them. They do have 2 kinds. So blunt. Fuck, it cracks me up though that they literally go, if the word diverse is in it, cancel the funding. Do you want us to read what it's talking about diversity?
100%.
No.
Here's a great one. Advancing collaborations for equity in marine and climate science.
Boom, equity and climate at least. Come on.
Double cancelled. So
yeah, that's it. You ask money now. You've got to not only give back the research funds, but twice the amount we gave.
You got to go and fund something else.
You woke liberal hippie bastards.
So look, I was just flicking through these and thinking, this is literal. That any of these grants that have anything that is diversity, equity, inclusion. So you get a bunch of grants that are funded because they're literally on trans youth or something like that. But then a bunch that have the word trans in there. We know that the Enola Gay, for example, has been cancelled. But then there's also a bunch that are looking at misinformation, disinformation work. It's like, no, the truth comes from us. You don't get to critique. And a bunch that's on climate change.
My current job, which is not related to this podcast at all, there is a lot of conversation. It's science related, let's just put it that way. And my God, the people who are not prone to overkill and extreme worry are using words like catastrophic now in the wake of this. Like they're literally saying there are literally catastrophic impacts. I mean, like fucking with the data that NOAA and other related weather people and climate people are gathering and being shared all over the world. Stopping that has extreme implications across the planet, including in our dear country. We rely on so much data from these places and it's now just being burnt down. It's just willful destruction. I don't think there's even any rhyme or reason to it. They just want to show that they can fuck with things.
So this was my question when I was reading this, because you gave us a bunch of paradoxes before, And
It's
I've been
paralysis. I've told you that 1,000 times.
That's true.
Paralysis.
That's true. But I've been thinking about all of this stuff, attacks on science, but also the whole Trump presidency. And I listen to the podcasts, I watch the YouTube vids, and there's a bunch where people have started to talk about, okay, what is the worst case scenario here? And so often I've thought, wow, your worst case scenario is quite timid. It's really like you're really not getting, so one example recently, Ezra Klein, love his work. It's great stuff. And
he's a big fan of this show.
He is. He's definitely not been on this show as much as he wants. There's conversations. He's like, oh, when the midterms come up, and I listen to him talk, and I just think, if
Yeah,
the
not when.
midterm.
Don't want to. I hear that too, and I want to give him a little hug and go, "Aren't you adorable?"
So
You think
my
that's
question
definitely
is,
going to happen?
we're into a through the looking glass moment with the Trump presidency. In a sense that there is ripping up a whole bunch of science. Yes, that's one thing, but ripping up a whole bunch of things all around the world and moving really, really quite quickly, shockingly quickly, and the Project 2025 people are kind of astounded by how quickly Trump is moving, and they're like, this is wildly off the charts, the best thing we could have hoped for.
That is a terrifying utterance, and the Project 2025 people are freaked. You're like, what in the smoking shit?
No,
is going
they're
on
not
now?
freaked. They're like,
they're not freaked. Okay.
They're surprised and impressed at how quickly Trump is moving. But why can't we talk about the worst case scenarios? Because it's like, are we thinking, okay, at some point things will bounce back to normal, or we just we've tipped the boat over and we have no idea, like we can't point to anything before, and that's what I'm trying to grapple with here. Like, I think, what is the worst case scenario? Well, I don't know. Trump is world dictator. Like he's like king of the world or something. I don't know.
That's not out of his sights. Is it likely? No, I don't know. But is it possible?
But look, this is a question. I don't know if this is a call for research or if this is a call for conversation. But there's a parallel. I've been thinking about this for a couple of decades. A bunch of climate researchers have accused the climate change community of not telling the truth. And I don't mean that in a climate denial way. I mean in a way that they say, you've actually softened the blow of how bad this is going to be.
We don't want to spook the horses, man. We don't want to spook the horses.
So if there's a spectrum of this is the worst and this is the easiest thing, that climate scientists have erred towards telling the sort of middle of the road or less sort of version, and we've erred on not saying the worst case scenario. But I feel like, don't we need some worst case scenarios right now? Don't we need to hit the panic button and say, this is how bad things could be?
I'll be pedantic and say not so much the panic button, but say, no, this is actually, we are in crisis now. Like, the crisis has come, because otherwise, this is back to a thing we did ages ago on the Wholesome Show about the memory hole with COVID and so on. I think there's a memory hole thing going on here too. It's like, but how bad is it really? Has it ever really gotten as bad as we're speculating? Oh, come on, everyone calm down. We don't want to we don't have to spook the horses, all that timid horse shit. And then the analyses that will fall afterwards when the shit really goes worse, and it's already pretty bad. People go, oh, yeah, I know, we should have seen that coming. It's like, you fucking wuss bags.
Yeah.
It's cowardly too. It's like, oh, you panicked. It didn't go as bad as you said. It's like, have you thought the part of the reason it didn't go as bad as I said was because I said it?
That was my panic. My panic was solving problems.
Yeah, my panic may have helped.
The close people around me say this is why pessimists are more important for society.
I've always said that. Always said that.
Idiot optimists sitting around here thinking, oh, it can't be that bad.
But honestly, level-headed people who like to be very cautious and think about all the nuances and so forth that I hear from or am chatting with, they are also saying, like, no, we're actually in the poo now. Even dear Ezra, said it's happening now. But then, as you say, he still goes on to say, and anyway, but at least we've got the midterms. Like, I wouldn't be relying on them existing.
Maybe it's something that we all get up and go to work in the morning. Like, you live your life. It's like the band kept playing on the Titanic,
on the Titanic,
because what else do you do? You've got a job and you sort of, well, I'll go to work, and then one day maybe I won't, because the world has gone really bad, but I got to treat the world as continuing as if it does,
which is perfectly reasonable. In the end, it's perfectly reasonable, like, as in understandable. Like, what else are you going to do other than what you already do until you can't anymore? If you've got no other idea or you feel impotent, what do you do?
Yeah. I'm really torn, and I'd love to know. I don't want to know what people's worst case scenarios are, but I think we need more of a conversation about, how bad things could get.
We agree.
Do you want a tiny science fact?
Yeah, I want a tiny science fact. It better be a nice one. I want something nice. Give me something nice, because after that I feel like icky.
This is a very small thing that I just learnt, and I was like, "You are what? How is that possible?" So I was flicking through, those almanacs, science facts, bunch of different things.
Honestly, that is a word that needs to come back. We don't use the word almanac enough. It needs to be modernized and used in technological terms, but I love an almanac. It sounds so interesting and mysterious.
I wasn't looking at this, but I had never thought this. But the sturgeon, the fish from which we get caviar.
Delicious, delicious caviar.
Do you know where they live and how their life cycle works?
They live in the water and they get milked by Russian peasants for our pleasure.
Let's go with yes, basically. But the particular water that they live in is rivers, estuaries sometimes. There's versions of sturgeon all around the world. The famous and tasty beluga is very much from the Russian, Kazakh, Ukrainian part of the world.
Can I also say that you just given me a good name for an indie band, Versions of Sturgeon. I think that'll be a great name.
Versions of Sturgeon. But
Yeah.
do you know how big a sturgeon can get?
Fucking humongous. They're like dragons, man. They get like 3 men to lift them kind of thing, if I remember correctly, which I probably don't.
Yes, 100%. The world's biggest sturgeon ever caught was, although there are some that might even be bigger than this, that's unverified going back. So in the Volga Delta in 1827, a sturgeon measuring 7.2 meters.
7.2 meters. That's a freaking whale shark.
So this is the size. Jaws was 25 foot. So this sturgeon would have been like 23 or something like that. And there's stories about a mythical sturgeon 100 years before that was 8.6 meters long. And I'm like, this thing lived in a river. I had never had it in my head that the sturgeon got big, but the sturgeon can get as big as Jaws and lives in a river. And I'm like,
I'd seen a 3 meter version and I thought, well, that's the biggest fish in the universe. I'm wildly wrong. That is humongous. And they're kind of creepy looking.
oh yeah. They would be very creepy if I was having a swim in the river and up comes the sturgeon. I think they're bottom feeders, which means cover your ass and your donkey will be safe.
Stop taking my jokes, you bastard. Well, look, you've just listened to a little bit of science, and of course what we want you to do is, how many stars can you get now? Is it like 28 stars on iTunes?
7.2 meters of stars.
7.2 meters of stars, please. And if you have any suggestions, keep them to yourself or just back channel us so that we can fix it.
No, you send in the suggestions. You hit
to the email address
at a little bit of science.com.au.
Cheers at a little bit of whole.com.
I nearly said a little bit of wholesome.
But yeah, if you've got any ideas or if you've got any corrections, because sometimes we'll get stuff wrong. I never do. I'm pure facts. But if you get any corrections, let us know.
Maybe send in your worst case scenarios.
Please do.